We know this Atlanta Braves team has been out of it for a while, but you still hope to see some fight down the stretch, especially against some contending teams, and that hasn't happened. Has this team just completely given up on the season? We'll discuss that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we go with your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching on YouTube, do me a huge favor. Stop real quick, hit that subscribe button. We're getting closer and closer to 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below so others can find us there. And on the audio side, you can help out as well. Just leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how does this team just completely quit, and does that reflect on the manager? We're also going to get into what happened over the weekend against the Astros, and I'm going to give you my take on me being at the ballpark Friday night and how it went for a pretty ugly game that the Braves played on Friday night. So a lot to unpack in this episode of a Locked On Braves, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So we knew this Atlanta Braves team, or we have known for quite some time. I think the last point in the season where I had hope was right before the All-Star break. I remember pointing out the path leading up to the All-Star break. If they could get as close to 500 leading into the All-Star break, you give yourself a chance going into the trade deadline. You make some moves, maybe something happens. But that didn't happen. The Braves stumbled going into the All-Star break, fell even further behind, and then it was just completely downhill after that. So we've known this season has been over for a while, a couple of months now. That said, though, you still hope to kind of see this team give some fight and to have something to build on, some momentum to build on going into 2026. And it felt like we got that through a pretty good month of August, where they had a winning record, where we saw the offense make some strides, and we thought, okay, maybe this team's heading into the right direction. Maybe they're finally starting to grasp this Tim Hires approach and offensive philosophy that it seems like they're starting to try at least to shift to. But we're midway through September, 2 weeks left in the season, and those feelings are gone, at least for me. Those feelings are gone at this point. And it feels like the team has completely checked out. And I hate to assume effort on the part of a player. But let's just be completely honest. In your job, I know it's tough for me around the holiday seasons. You got vacation coming up. You got that vacation fatigue, or when you're in school, end of the school year is coming, and it's hard to stay completely locked in and focused. And these guys are human just like us. And you have to know that it's a lost season. You're 2 weeks away from getting on vacation, putting this dreadful season behind you. It would not surprise me if there's a lack of focus and drive. I know a lot of people are trying to blame that on Ronald and some of the things that they see on the field right now from him. And let's be honest, he has looked completely lost for the most part at the plate over the last couple of months. Is that just a lack of focus and intensity because of where the team is? I don't know. Is it, him being tired at the end of a long season after not playing for a lot last year? I don't know. But just outside of Ronald, it's not just him. It feels like this team is starting to check out a little bit, which is, unfortunate because you had a chance. I felt here that you had a chance at the beginning of September to show us that the strides you saw in August that gave us optimism was for real. Because also the competition's been much better. They haven't won a series in September yet, but they've also only played teams that are in playoff contention. Right now, all the teams they played in September, if the season ended today, would be in the postseason. But again, I thought that would be a good time for this team to find that extra motivation that they're playing teams that are going to be postseason teams. You can really measure yourself up in who you hope to be against teams you hope to be competing with next year. And I wanted to see that. I wanted to see this team really get tested and hope to see them succeed and have some success. Maybe win a couple of these series against postseason teams, maybe even sweep one and really change up. They had a real shot to change up the dynamic in the AL West, but instead they just lost the series to those teams and really didn't, chip in either way for one of those teams. And that, I think, is the biggest frustration for me so far with this Braves team in September, is that I wanted to see if what we saw in August could hold up against better competition. I wanted to see if this team could continue to fight since they were playing some postseason teams. Like I expect a lack of focus going into this Nat series and the Pirate series and all these series they have coming up against teams that are out of it, or teams in like the Tigers that are, have already clinched things at that point. I expect some lack of focus then, but I really wanted to see at the beginning of September here against all these teams still battling, if the Braves could match their level of intensity and show that they're still a really good team and that they can compete with that competition. Instead, they've shown me they're still just not there and they're not quite ready. That, or there is just a complete lack of focus and they've just completely given up on the season, which, again, I hate to make assumptions from my couch, but they feel checked out to me. Again, I was at the game on Friday, and so this probably isn't the best time for me to, be having those opinions, voicing those opinions, because Friday was really bad. They came back on Sunday and won, and that looked all good, but there's just been too many games here lately where it feels like this team is completely checked out. And the other part of that is, how does that reflect on your manager and Brian Snitker, who is debating whether or not to come back for another year, which I was surprised to hear him say that, because he hasn't announced anything. He has those comments that says, feel like one day this is it for me. One day I want to come back, and I'm sorry, I cannot have a manager at 70 years old who's 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out. I cannot have another year of that, because if you were going through that this year, and I'm sure that only happened once the Braves, did start to fade, but I can't have a manager who's not all in. And love Brian Snitker, who has been all in on this organization his entire career, but I can't have a manager that's 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door. I got to have a manager that's in there, ready to fight, motivated, energized, and that's just not Brian Snitker. And, that's been a criticism of his from at least the fans, is that he's not somebody to motivate, energize. He's not a rah-rah guy. And how does this performance against these top teams at the beginning of September reflect on him if this team has checked out? That he still doesn't have that ability to motivate a bad team or to get a team that's struggling, get them going. And I feel like this is a failure you can put on him a little bit, in that if he was wanting to show that fire, that he still has that energy. And again, he's a manager. He can't play the game. You got, the players have to get it done, but I feel like this could have been a chance for him, because there's that team, it feels like every year that down the stretch, they're a bad team, they're out of it, but they're pesky and they play well in that final month, and they really give some teams some fits, and you feel really good about that team going into the offseason. And it may not mean anything come 2026, but at least for that moment in time, you have those good vibes going into the offseason. And, maybe the Braves do well this second half, because the second half of September, because the schedule is much lighter. But I think for me, I'll remember this first half of the month where you had a chance against good competition. You had a chance to show what you could do. You had a chance to be motivated, play motivating type of baseball, and you didn't. And I think that's, again, I think you can reflect some of that on the manager. I think that's fair to put some of that on Snitker. Not that he needs any more criticism at this point, but that good stretch that we had in August that had us feeling pretty good about next season, that's gone for me at this point. And like I said, maybe it has no real effect on 2026, especially if there is a new coach. That's just going to bring a whole dynamic anyway. But they're not leaving a positive impression in 2025, in my opinion. But let me know what you think. Do you think this team's checked out completely? Do you think that's a reflection of Brian Snitker? Do you think it even matters when it comes to 2026? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And look, I know we've all been ready to move on, but you would expect the players and the coaches to show a little bit more fight than I think what we've seen over these first couple of weeks of September. And look, as me saying this, I understand it's somewhat hypocritical, because I'm the one that's been saying, just bring up the young guys, let them play. These games don't matter. But, at the same time, you're out there, you're playing some good competition. I would hope to see a little bit better baseball than what you've seen. But it is helping the Braves in their playoff odds. They're getting really close to getting the second best odds once again, like they had earlier in the year. They're really tight now with the Pirates and the Orioles right there as well. The Twins were the other team. It's the Pirates and the Twins that they're all right there, kind of battling, I guess you can say, for that second overall pick. So that has definitely helped the Braves in that category, at least trying to get the top pick. But again, let me know your thoughts on this team in the first part of September. Are you disappointed? You don't care? You think this has any effect on Snitker? You think it has any effect on next season? Let me know what you think down below. Next, we will get into what happened over the weekend. Some regression hitting hard for Hurston, Waldrop, and Bryce Elder. We'll talk about that here next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel allows you to bet the way you like with player props, building same-game parlays, or just jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to those Sunday afternoons where you're normally taking a nap after church and a good lunch. You're ready to take a good nap there. Also, please make sure that you are visiting FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. And the best part about it is even if one of your pick misses, PrizePicks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. You're still in the baseball season. You can do that as well. See what they got for Chris Sale coming up pitching, where they have him up for strikeouts. Just pick more or less on that. Take the more always with Chris Sale on the mound. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And as always, make sure that you do play responsibly. But you can get, when you use our code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups with your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Thank you, as always, making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day, solely getting caught up on all the action happening around Major League Baseball and the guys from MLB Game Night like Lindsey Crosby himself, keeping you up to date with the biggest highlights from each and every day as well, leading up to the postseason. Well, the Atlanta Braves avoided getting swept by the Houston Astros. They did show a little fight on Sunday, which was nice to see. Wish they would have done that on Friday while I was there. But they do lose another series, and it feels like they've been doing a lot of avoiding getting swept here in the month of September. On Friday night, the offense, 3 runs on 5 hits, 2 walks, just 5 strikeouts, 2 home runs, both of them coming off Gordon late in that one. No at-bats with runners in scoring position. It was a pretty rough game to watch if you were there. That was me. I was there. Saturday, they scored 2 runs on 6 hits, 1 walk, just 5 strikeouts. Again, not a lot of strikeouts. Putting the ball in play, just not well enough. Not enough hits. Just 5 hits on Friday, 6 hits on Saturday. Of course, both those games kind of got away. On Saturday, they had a double and a home run, 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. And then on Sunday, they did get those hits, 11 of them, leading to 8 runs, along with 6 walks and just 7 strikeouts. A double, 2 home runs, 4 for 15 with runners in scoring position. That's more of what it's supposed to look like and what it should have looked like on Friday night for the offense. Hopefully more games like that. Me and Lindsey talked about it in the postcast. You want to go back and give it a listen on Sunday's game. But that is the hope with this Tim Hires offense. And it's what we kind of talked about on the mailbag episode too, where you're hoping to see the combination of the good plate discipline and approach in taking your walks combined with the hits and the good 2-strike approach like you've seen from Ha-Seong Kim, and he did in that game on Sunday where he just poked a ball at the middle, poked the ball the other way. for hits to kind of keep the line moving and producing runs. 4 for 15 with runners in scoring position. It's a lot of opportunities with runners in scoring position. And, you're able to come through on 4 of them. You get the couple of home runs. That's what you're hoping for, that just all-around approach where you're having the patience, you're taking your walks, you're still showing a little bit of power in there, but you're also sprinkling in some hits as well to keep the line moving and to put those big innings together. And they just haven't done that consistently enough throughout the season. They had, small stretches of it here in the second half. They haven't done it enough over the last couple of weeks. And look, Framber's a good starter too. They were able to do it to him on Sunday. But that was, indicative of what you were hoping this Tim Hires approach would do. And you can't expect that every game, but at least to be able to do it more consistently than what they've done this year. So that's good to see. Again, we'll see what they can do down the stretch here. I just don't know. I don't know what really they can do at this point to change my mind, because the competition is just not good the rest of the way. So even if they do it, in the final 2 weeks, you can very much just chalk it up to, okay, it's the competition that you were facing. Matt Olson, hot again, and he had a little bit of a cold streak, towards the end of August, early September, but his last 15 games, 340, 410, 623, 4 home runs. I never thought he was going to get to 30 home runs this year. He probably still won't, but definitely getting closer to that. And on the series, had 4 hits, 2 home runs, 1 walk to no strikeouts. He hadn't struck out in his last 5 games. So that's great to see. He's the one guy, and I said this on the postcast, I feel like he's the one guy that's really done the best at putting this whole approach together this year. He's always been great at taking his walks. He's still striking out at a 24% clip, but we've seen the power come down, but we've seen the average go up. I mean, hitting 270 this year. And this might just be the every other year effect for Matt Olson, but I feel like he's become a more well-rounded hitter this year than we've seen in the past. And then on the bad side, though, Drake Baldwin, he sits on Sunday, his last 15 games, 184, 245, 265, and it feels like he's losing that Rookie of the Year award. He really needed a good month. I feel like he was a leader coming into September, but it was all going to be who performed the best in the month, and it's certainly not Drake Baldwin right now. We'd love to see him, get hot once again, finish these last couple of weeks. Maybe the better competition will help him out there. We'll certainly take it if that's the case, but need him to kind of finish strong these next 2 weeks if he's going to win that award and help out the Atlanta Braves draft next year. On the pitching side, Hurston Waldrop, 4 2/3, 8 hits, 2 walks, 8 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. Worth noting, and this isn't a pile on more with Drake Baldwin, but this was the first game without Sean Murphy catching him. I believe that is true. I know Sean Murphy has been his primary catcher since coming up. Still had 10 whiffs, still had a 29% CSW, 8 hard hit balls, though. You do have to wonder if the league's adjusting to him a little bit. We saw it last time, I believe it was against the Mariners, where they were starting to lay off that splitter, so he had to go to that sinker more, and I thought he did a good job adjusting inside the game. And then this one against the Astros just wasn't able to do that quite as well or quite as quickly. And perhaps it's just some natural regression. Knew he couldn't pitch to a 1 ERA his entire career. And so that might just be normalizing a little bit along with the league kind of adjusting to him. It'll be interesting to see what he does this next time out, because I'm always interested to see Hurston Waldrop pitch, because he's an exciting player, an exciting pitcher to watch right now. But how does he follow this up? You have a dud of a start here. Can you come back out your next time out, make the adjustments, and go 5-6 innings again and look really good? Could also be that he's getting tired. He just crossed that threshold of the most innings he's ever pitched in a season before. So there could be some of that as well. As far as Bryce Elder on Saturday, talk about the regression monster hitting here. He's been so good as of late, but in this one, 4 1/3 innings, 10 hits allowed, 3 walks, 6 earned runs. He did still have 7 strikeouts. It was an odd one. Home run as well in 89 pitches, 10 hard hit balls allowed, 17 whiffs, and a 35% CSW. I just look at those numbers and nothing else. I'm going out on a limb to say that 90 to 95% of the time with those numbers, you're going to have a fantastic start. And it is just wild to see those numbers lead to a dud like Bryce Elder had. But I think that speaks to what we talked about last week, and that's just he's a consistently inconsistent pitcher, and we just know that. And generally we talk about it from he's having, have good stretches and then bad stretches. This one, I feel like it was just inconsistent throughout. There were times in the game where he looked like the great version of Bryce Elder. And then there were times in this game where he just absolutely did not. Now, one thing I really focused in on a lot last week when we did a whole breakdown of Bryce Elder was the usage of that fastball, but not just the usage of it, but where he's throwing it. And he's done a great job of locating it at the top of the zone. But in this one, half of them were middle down. And that four-seamer just can't be down. It's going to get absolutely crushed if that's the case. And I think that was part of the issue in this one, not all of it. But, like I said, probably just a little bit of regression after a lot of great starts. But you still saw some really good things in there. I mean, 17 whiffs, that's no joke. That's not an easy task. That tells you he had some good moments in that game and just too many mistakes. And the Astros just seemed to be kind of on the Braves in those first two games of the series. And then Joey Wentz on Sunday, best outing of the weekend for a starter, I guess. 4 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk, 2 earned. So the Braves didn't have a single starter make it through the 5th inning in this series. 5 strikeouts for Joey Wentz. I'm kind of out on Joey Wentz. I mean, if you can keep him around as a long man, it could give you some starts here and there. You can't find anything better than that in the offseason. Okay. But I feel like he's in the same bucket as Elder. It's just, if injuries hit, you need these guys to come up and give you some innings and fill in. Sure, they can do that, and they might have a good stretch here or there, but it's a replacement level starter. What both Elder and Wentz are in my mind. As far as the bullpen goes, not really too much to take out from the weekend. Dylan Dodd, some good work on Saturday, covering 3 2/3 innings. Saving the bullpen. Also, helped the team get back in the game. It was, they gave up 6 runs, but they gave up early. There was plenty of opportunity for the offense to get back in that one if they could. Obviously, Hunter Brown, a very good pitcher. So good job by Dodd there. And then Lee, Johnson, and Iggy closed it out on Sunday with relative ease. Those are your guys right now, along with Kenley. So good to see them close it down on Sunday, like I said, to avoid that sweep and no drama at the end. Defensively, Nacho with a couple of really great plays on the weekend. I know he's made a couple of blunders defensively here lately, but also some great ones. I know the game I was at on Friday, he made a fantastic play. Hassan Kim made a fantastic play the game that I was at on Friday, and his glove's starting to look a lot better there at shortstop. So I was really impressed with the left side of the infield there on the weekend. Ronald with a great play on Friday that we'll talk about more here in a second. I want to dive into my experience at Truist Park. And while it was a dud of the game, why it was still a fantastic trip. We'll get into that here next. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people, and it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. Whether you are at work, out with friends, or even just getting ready in the morning, Nutrafol gives you more confidence in your daily routine. And you can feel good about it knowing Nutrafol is a NSF certified product and backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. So me and the family took a trip to Truist Park on Friday night, and the game was an absolute dud. In fact, I've only been to 2 games this year. I think it's the fewest amount of games that I've ever been to in a season. A lot of reasons for that, not necessarily because the Braves have been so bad, although I'm sure that's part of it. Who wants to really spend a lot of time and money to go watch this team if they're going to play like they have been? But I've been to 2 games this year, and in those 2 games, the Braves have been outscored 21-4. I went to the game on Friday night against the Astros, and then the Father's Day game against the Rockies, where I got to see Luke Williams pitch. So, yeah, not a great experience at the ballpark this year in terms of the games. But unlike the Father's Day trip, we took the kids this time, and I got to say, best decision we ever made, because when I go to the game normally, me and my wife, we know we're sitting there for 9 innings. Doesn't matter what's happening. We're watching the game. We're locked in, and it's hard to do that when your team is getting absolutely blasted. But with the kids there, they had an amazing experience. The new kid area out in left field, the children's park, amazing. Got us through the rest of that game. And we also made it through fireworks. We sat down, shout out to Gametime, sponsor of the show. I got some last minute tickets down in section 40, a really good deal. We also got access to the Chippers Lounge or dugout corner, whatever you want to call it, where you got some free soft serve ice cream and popcorns. Kids absolutely loved that. It was an amazing time at the ballpark. Like, we had a really good experience. All three of my kids got a baseball from the security guard. Shout out to that left field security guard. And apparently as soon as we got up and left to go to the children's park, a foul ball landed right where we were sitting. We ran into some people from our church there, had no idea they were going, and they were one section over. So that was pretty cool. Also ran into a listener, Sean from Greensboro, North Carolina. So shout out to you, Sean. Hope you had a safe travel back home. I'm sorry you had to experience that game with me. You made a longer trip than I did to see that game on Friday. But thanks so much for listening. Glad we had a good conversation there talking about Ha-Sung Kim and whether or not he'll come back. And then I think it really all summed up. I posted a picture of my son and the foul ball on social media, and Hunter P said in a comment on that picture that that's all that matters. And I wanted to pause for just a moment because, look, I get caught up in the season. I let my emotions get the best of me with how my team performs, and that's part of it and part of being a fan. You know, we kind of live and die at times by our team. We want to be proud of our team. We want to have some pride in our team. But remember why you fell in love with the game in the first place, or at least for me, and I think a lot of you, I fell in love with the game because it's something that me and my mom did every day or every night. We sat down together. We watched the Braves game. We spent time together. You know, I went to the ballpark with my dad. We went and watched games together. We drive all over the country, going to different ballparks, watching games together. Look, I love the game. Like, I love the actual game itself, and that's why I love it so much that I talked about it. I wanted to report on it, because I love the actual game. But don't let that ignore the fact of what it's really all about from a fan experience, sharing that time with somebody else. So maybe it's not your kids, but maybe you go to the ballpark with a friend. I remember in college, me and my friend Jamal riding over from Auburn all the time to go to games together. No matter what the team is doing, and this isn't a stunt to try to get you to go to more games to spend money for the Braves. I don't care about that at all. But it was very eye-opening to me because we were debating whether or not to take our kids because we wanted to try to enjoy the experience as much as possible. But we wouldn't have had as much fun if our kids weren't there, if we weren't sharing that experience with somebody else. And that's what going to the ballpark is. I can sit on this couch right here on a 60-inch TV in high definition and watch these Braves games. And I can break it down better for you by doing that. But going to the game is an experience. And Truist Battery, the baseball park in itself, they have done a fantastic job of making it an experience that no matter what's happening on that field, you can still have a fantastic time. And that's exactly what happened with me and my family on Friday. And I just wanted to share that with you. It was a good reminder from Hunter and others as well who commented on that picture of what it's really all about and what baseball is about for a lot of us. It's a break. And with everything that's happened across the country last week too, this is also part of that just kind of reflection that sports is a way to just get away from all that for a moment and to share an experience with a friend, with a family member. And I just wanted to share that with you because it was really just kind of that reminder, that refresher, because we do this every day. And it's easy to get caught up and let our emotions kind of get the best of us and rant. And I get a comment in all caps about how bad the team is or how bad I am. And it was just a really, really good reminder for me of what it's really all about. It's enjoying the game that I love, enjoying the game that I love with my children, with my wife, with a friend. And I just wanted to, again, share that with you because that's the experience that we had on Friday, which is one of the worst actual games that I've been to. And we still just had a fantastic time. So again, not trying to do promoting for the Braves, but there's just one homestand left this year. You got a chance to go to the ballpark, do so, take a friend, take a kid with you, have a fantastic time at the ballpark. You won't be able to do that unless you live in Washington because that's where the Braves are headed next. We will see Strider, Sale, and Waldrop in this 4-game set with a doubleheader in the middle of it. So looking forward to seeing what those guys can do. Strider looked much better last time out. Can he continue that? Waldrop didn't look so great as last time out. Can he improve on that? Can this offense look more like the offense we saw on Sunday? That's what we'll be watching for in this Nats series. Me and Lindsay will have you on the postcast for those games. I'll also be right back here with you on the podcast. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the minor league spotlight from last week. Minor league season's coming to a close as well. We'll talk about the guys that are going to the Arizona Fall League, including Nacho Alvarez. Surprise addition to that list. We'll talk about all that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Braves. But that'll do it for this one. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. We will talk to you next time.